Right. Hey, how are you? Good. I haven't been here for one of these in a long time. No, no, just my work schedule has been, I've been working the last Tuesday of every month.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Depending on your clock, we're either a minute early or a minute late or right on. So with a quorum of the board present, I call the meeting to order. Roll call of the board members. Commissioner Buck.
Here.
Commissioner Rooney.
Here.
Commissioner Hoban is present, but not here.
He's paying out.
Yeah, but not here. So make note of that when he walks in. Commissioner Gutsa.
Here.
Commissioner Swenson.
Here.
Commissioner Evans.
Here.
And Commissioner Talcott's here. Would you please all stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the mission of the Great Falls International Port Authority is to optimize transportation services and development in our region. The vision of the authority is to maximize the airport's benefit to our region. And the first line item that we have here is the consent agenda, which is made up of routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have a significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for a separate discussion or vote by any board member. This includes the approval of the board minutes from February 24th, 2015, payroll checks totaling $70,096.64, maintenance and operations checks listed as shown totaling $155,761.13, and approve of the passenger facility charge totaling $65,000, and the financial reports for February. Without objection, the consent agenda.
We're taking a motion. Yep.
Excuse me?
Take a motion. Motion.
What takes a motion? Would you take that out there, please?
Oh, does it say that on there? I'm testing.
Yeah, you're testing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
It wasn't in this group.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, directors report.
Yes, happy March, everyone. And a couple exciting things to tell you about. We just found out in the last couple of weeks that we are going to be hosting 2 commemorative Lend-Lease program events throughout the next couple of months, celebrating the 70th anniversary of Victory in Europe. There's 2 separate groups that are organizing flights. The first one takes place on April 27th. That's a Monday. We'll be visited by a group out of Britain who flies a DC-3. And they're coming to Great Falls with on a first leg of a commemorative flight. They've chosen to start in Great Falls to commemorate the community's contribution with the Lend-Lease program. Planes that were flown to Russia during World War II to help them battle the Germans up there on the northern front. And so the 27th, the plane will fly in. We're organizing some press around that. The city is going to do some type of proclamation, making it, Lend-Lease Day or something like that. We're also going to, it's just this morning I found out the TV morning program, Good Morning Montana, or is it Hello Montana? I've forgotten the wording on that one. But they're planning to broadcast live from the airport that morning with some break-ins with the plane out in front of the wooden hangar. We're going to, AvMax has agreed to let us use that spot right in front of the wood hangar. We're hoping to get a photographer for the event to snap some photos. I mean, you can imagine the DC-3 setting in front of that World War II hangar is a real opportunity there for some really cool photos. And the public will be invited up to take part in the event that afternoon. So it'll be kind of a real fun event. They actually asked us if we could find a formation-rated pilot so they could do some shots over downtown. So if anyone knows a pilot, we're still in search of one. We've also put that out to the state aviation, state aeronautics group to see if they know of a formation-rated pilot.
Just going to say, Vince Bakke.
Is he formation rated?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know, because we might be able to do that right here
What kind of
locally.
airplane?
It's a DC-3.
For a DC-3?
Assuming he's not, well,
Well, he would be able to
he
fly
would
the
be
plane
in a
next
different
to it.
airplane, flying in
Yeah,
formation.
they want to get some photos actually over the
Oh, I
city.
see, just for photo ops?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, and so yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't thought that Vince was rated, but that's great to know. And so we'll have the public up. We'll have some good press around it. The Aeronautics Board is going to put it in their newsletter, and that morning show appearance will be inviting the public up that day to see the plane in case anyone hasn't heard. So that's a really cool one. And then in July, it looks like July 11th is the date. We're trying to get them to move it back a week. But there's a second group that's flying through. This one's called Bravo 369, and they visited us about 2 years ago. They have a trainer, a World War II trainer, and then we're trying to organize a fly-in of some other warbirds. I think I have a couple out of Helena. Looks like we might be able to get a Mustang and a couple of other planes up here for that event and have kind of a heritage day. We'd like to try and put together some type of event around that, maybe a revenue opportunity. These guys are filming a documentary. They've met with the Smithsonian and also with Discovery Channel to try and pitch the idea. They have a full film crew, and they're recreating the flight like the first guys. The first guys are actually flying all the way into Russia. These guys will be flying up to Fairbanks. The Russians won't let them fly over, but they're going to get on some Russian planes in Fairbanks and then fly the rest of the way. So some real exciting things, I think, coming to the community over the next couple of months, commemorating that 70th anniversary and the important role Great Falls played in that. So I think real good press opportunities, public opportunities, and of course the board's welcome to attend both of those. They're both going to be real neat events. So we're still working on the one in July. We don't have all the details around that one yet. The one on the 27th that came up so quickly, looks like that's primarily going to be just invite the public up to see the plane, maybe get some photos taken in front of the wood hangar. And they're actually going to do some talking about Lend-Lease, maybe a couple articles in the paper leading up to that to tell people about the history that don't know the history of it. We've also tried to put some feelers out. The last time the Bravo 369 guys came through, a couple people from the community showed up that were mechanics and repair guys, and actually during the World War II effort here. So we're hoping to find those people again and invite them back up. The Bravo 369 guys in particular are trying to collect stories of people who were involved with the program, because obviously the window on that is closing. So we think they both have the potential to be really neat events.
So John, are you hoping to have a Tribune photographer, or are you looking for a commercial photographer?
We'll probably use a commercial photographer, and the first group may actually be traveling with one because they're part of a commemorative Air Force type group out of the UK. And so I've asked them already, do you guys have a photographer? Because if not, we'll find one here locally. We definitely want to use this as an opportunity to get some photos. I was looking at it just the other day and actually got some photos out there. And I was thinking, that's if we did something, with that DC-3 and then this summer with that collection of airplanes we'll have here, those would just be awesome photos that we could use, around the airport to celebrate that history, that's unique to us and Fairbanks and a couple of other airports that were in that program. It's also how the Alcan Highway was built. It actually followed the route from here up to Fairbanks. They wanted a ground route to support the number of pilots that were flying that. So a lot of neat history involved with that program. Second thing I was going to mention is we had a visit from one of our carriers this week. They sent a team up to see us, which is highly unusual. Airlines very rarely come to your town, so we were pretty interested in what they had to say. They kept it a good secret, but It looks as though in August, we're going to get a schedule change from one of our carriers that will result in about 20% more seats from that carrier. They've also told us that accompanying that will be a reconfiguration of our route, of our fare structure, which is going to open up a bunch of what they call T fares, which are the cheap ones, and they intend to keep that in the market for the long term. We think this particular move will put a lot of pressure on rates to the West Coast. So we're pretty excited about that. We think it'll be a real benefit to us in the long run. We think it'll also let us recover next year from the seats we lost in the Frontier and LAX routes. So pretty exciting change. That change will take place in August. It'll be announced any day now. We're actually working on a joint press release that we hope to wrap up in the next week. So it should float across the news wires any minute now as a formal announcement and be loaded into the schedule. So very exciting.
Any reason why they're waiting until August?
I don't know what they're. I've tried to get that changed, and you know, I mean, in fact, I thought for sure this visit was going to be because they were changing it, but they apparently just don't have the frames. Everybody's short on frames right now. There just aren't any airplanes, and then as soon as we get airplanes, we're going to be out of pilots in 2 years. So, you know, pick your poison. Plane doesn't do well without a pilot. Pilot doesn't do well without a plane. So. But yeah, it's an exciting. This will actually be the biggest amount of new seats in our market in the last 5 years. So a significant change, about 20,000 seats. Pretty exciting. Then the last thing I was going to mention is, if you saw the weekly report, we have made the decision to delay taxiway C1 connector for this construction year. You may have been following in the weekly reports. The FAA indicated that they would not accept the existing inline taxiway paint on runway 1634. That paint's been there since at least the runway project 6 or 7 years ago. But the FAA now says that configuration is not allowed, even though the handbook shows exactly how to paint it. It's not safe in their estimation. So that would have added about $200,000 to the project because we would have had to restripe to get rid of the inline taxiway. We would have had to move the approach lighting in order to accommodate that no longer being runway paint but taxiway paint. And then a year from now, we would have to undo the taxiway lighting and put it in a different configuration with the mill and overlay of runway 1634. And of course, you can't preserve your paint when you mill and overlay, so we would have wasted the entire paint scheme that we would have put down this year. The total add to that project was going to be about $200,000 to accomplish the work they wanted us to do. And we just simply told them it wasn't worth it. I mean, even though 90% of that's eligible money, we don't feel like we would get enough utility out of making those changes to justify the taxiway C1 connector for one additional year. In fact, by the time we got done with construction this year and started construction next year, that paint would have only probably gotten us 6 months of useful life. So we're going to defer C1 into the larger program next year, and we're going to consolidate the entitlement monies that we plan to use into next year to give us a bigger purse for that larger project. We should see some tangential benefit out of that aside from the work we don't have to do at all, because all of that work just goes away simply. We'll be painting the runway new next year anyhow, and the taxiway or the approach lighting will have to move next year anyway because of the project. So it's truly a complete savings. But we should get a better pricing on the volume since we're adding volume to our asphalt purchase for next year, and you know, aggregate and everything, because we'll be doing full depth construction on taxiway C and the taxiway C1 connector. So pricing should be a little bit better. So we did indicate to the FAA we wanted to defer the project. So we're taking that project off the books for the year. And that's all I have on the director's report, unless anyone has any questions about those things.
Anybody have any questions? Well, that's really good news about the new seats in the market.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited about that one.
At the price point.
Yes, yeah, the pricing is going to be, I think, a big deal for us going forward.
So are they pricing in the cost of fuel yet? Or is that just the market?
We have an exceptionally competitive fare structure right now. It's not in every market, but there's about a solid 15 markets that we've been tracking since the beginning of the year that are below 500 round trip, and that includes New York. San Diego's been down below 300 or in the low 300s. LA has stayed right in there. Miami's been below 500 or right at 500. For us, the airfare environment is terrific. And the fourth quarter data for 14 will be published probably in the next 3 weeks. But through the first 3 quarters, our airfares are down about 13% of last year. They were down about 13%. We think we've probably got another 8, 9, 10% into this year in the first quarter. Of course, that data will be some ways off. But the good news is for 14, we think our average ticket price is all the way back to 1997 levels. So pretty aggressive down move in our airfares. And demand is better than it's ever been. We're pretty excited about the environment. We think the competitive spirit of the airlines right now is better than it's been probably since 9/11.
Nice job. Okay, so looks like we're ready for another piece of snow equipment. Are you gonna?
We are. So we would like to purchase our third combi unit. The combi unit's it's a large. This one happens to be a tractor. They call it in the front. It's a semi-like over cab type of piece of equipment with a 22-foot blade, and then it pulls via a big boom a second piece of equipment, which is a self-motorized broom. And so in years past, we would have had 2 pieces of equipment, a big frame with a broom on it, and then a big tow truck, a big dump truck with a blade on it. Those units now are combined in a unit called a combi unit. This will be our third combi unit. With this third one, it allows us more or less to go down the runway in one pass, come back, and we've pretty much got the runway full length at that point. Our fleet plan calls for 3 of these, and this is the third one, so we'll be complete on these combi units. Probably won't need to buy one again for another 10, 15 years, and we may have to replace one of the chassis at some point, the actual truck part. We were able to adopt one of our existing trucks into a combi roll about 2 years ago, and that's probably got another 5, maybe 10 years of useful life on it, at which time we can just replace that chassis and be right back into 3 newer combi units. But this is the third piece. Rod did talk to some vendors and now has a bid in hand at about $575,000 for the unit.
Does anybody have any questions on this purchase?
Well, I noticed that, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Commissioner Hogan?
It's been a while since you've been in the school program. Maybe you weren't so good at it back then, though.
I noticed that in the reports that we put a stipulation that they had to be interchangeable.
Yeah.
Which then eliminated competition because we had to stick with the one supplier. Are these things ever going to be separated? I'm trying to judge if that's how necessary that is.
So it's a good question. The 2 items of compatibility are, we do think at some point they may be separated because we were way behind on our purchases, and I would have liked to phase these out over 10 or 15 years. But we were so far behind on our towing capacity and really our broom capacity that we've bought these now over about a 6-7 year term. And so what we want to be able to do is, as engines blow and transmissions blow, we want to be able to take the chassis and connect them to the other broom unit, because the broom units have their own engine, and chances are it has less parts. It's really just an engine with a broom on it. So chances are those brooms are going to last longer than the chassis, which has the transmission on it. It's doing most of the pulling, so it's got a bigger engine. So we do want to be able to switch these trailer units over. And the 2 items that of compatibility is the hitch. So you have to be able to connect to an MB broom. And then the second piece of it is the in-cab controls. And so we don't want to have 2 or 3 different types of controls to train our guys on, if possible. Because we use a lot of temporaries. And so if a guy comes today and he's running one unit, you'd like him to be able to come tomorrow and know what he's doing in the other unit that's similar. So we did weigh that. And we really thought that Oshkosh would consider bidding this because the two, NB and Oshkosh, used to work together on their units. And they're capable of putting the control module in there on their machine and the hitch in there on their machine. But it did limit, somewhat the interest in the bid. But I think, when you look at our 20-year history and being able to take one of these chassis out of service, put the other broom on it, eventually we want to get to where we have a spare chassis so that if we lose one in a storm, we can pull another unit in, put the blade on it, hook it to a different broom and go. And then in the interim, when it's not being used as a combi unit, it can be used just a plow truck out on the roads and other things. So there is some disadvantage to that proprietary package of, but there's a lot of advantage we get when you look at these things will be in service probably 20 years or more here at this airport.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
That's a good question because.
It is.
You can't sole source any item, can you?
Well, no, we can't sole source. In this case, we're using our own money, so we're just under state rules. But under state rules, we have to advertise it. We don't want to sole source in any case. But like I said, to be compatible with our two existing units on the control stuff, and then the hitch and being able to switch them around, it did require that we put those two elements in there. And in the end, I think that is probably what kept Oshkosh from being interested in it, which is a shame. I mean, they're a great manufacturer. We have other Oshkosh equipment, and they'll get it. Certainly, hopefully they'll bid in a couple of years. We plan to replace our snow blower. Hopefully, they'd be a good competitor for that.
Okay. If there's any other questions, Chair will entertain a motion concerning the approval and purchase of the new piece of snow equipment, or combination, or whatever.
Combination.
Question for clarification. In the letter that describes this, it shows that this is reimbursed by the airlines over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
What is the mechanism for that?
Through our rates and charges. Every year when we do our budget, we typically send the airlines a capital improvement program. And when we redid the airline agreement 5 years ago, it used to be we charged them depreciation, for all of our assets. And the only problem with that is you end up tracking just, tens of dozens of assets, and they get written off, and it's hard to charge the airlines, for those over the life of the actual item. So we switched to a mechanism where we charge them cash per year for our capital improvement projects. If it's over $350,000, we typically break it out over 2 years or longer for them. For instance, the terminal building, they're repaying us about $1.5 million, and that's over a 10-year period. So a unit like this, we'll typically send it to them and say, okay, we want to charge you $650,000 over 2 years, and we'll, this is what the rate impact will be. And so they vote on it, and typically they always pass it, but they could object if they didn't feel like they were getting benefit out of it.
So this would be over and above the cost that they're already anticipating?
No, it goes right into the rate base. So this unit goes into our landing fee. So part of the $1.35 they're paying every time they land a plane per 1,000-pound unit. So like an MD-80, for instance, weighs 138,000-pound units. So $1.35 times 138, I can't do that math, but that's what they pay. And this cost is buried in there along with operating expenses. And it's a partnership. We generate, say, $1.5 million from the passengers a year and all the stuff that we do there, which we use to lower their costs. And then they agree to pay for some of projects like this in order to keep the airport running. So it's they look at the combined basket of what they're paying per passenger, kind of is the way they look at it.
So they merely have to approve of this allocation.
Yeah,
Is the idea.
exactly. So we'll send them this capital project along with the roadway. Actually, I think they approved roadways last year. So probably this will be the only project they get for this year that they get to approve. And as long as I've been here for 5 years, they've never disapproved a project. Occasionally they'll ask some questions, but typically they approve them.
Any other questions or comments? We'll entertain a motion at this time for the
Purchase. we buy the combi unit.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the combo unit as proposed. Any comments, discussion? Then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We just bought on duty.
Of course, it didn't snow at all this year.
Yeah, so can we wait 220 days for
Yeah,
it to
so,
get
yeah, we
in?
can get something out of our warranty.
You just guaranteed a snowless 2015.
In case it was worth it, right?
Small price to pay.
Should last longer that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Roadways. Projects.
Oh, we've got the land lease.
Oh, the land lease, excuse me. So,
Laura, do you want
Sure.
to talk about the land lease?
We first brought this to the work session in December, and once again, nothing has changed on it. That second sheet shows the spot that we're talking about, which is just, if you keep heading over towards FedEx, right inside the fence, and on the right-hand side, there's a piece that we're not using for anything else, and probably wouldn't use for anything else. So this is the company that wants to park 3 to 4 avgas and diesel tankers. They currently do some fueling on the airport already, as well as various other places around town. They need about a ½ acre to an acre. They're not sure on how much they're gonna need. The guy that we had originally talked to needed to get it approved from headquarters out at Kalispell, and so he brought the next guy up last week, and they're very interested in it. They both said, you know, if we have our choice, this is the spot that we're going to be on. So they wanted us to bring it to you guys and have you approve it or not approve it, so that once they say, yes, this is the spot we want to be on, they can hit it as soon as the weather is good. So what they're looking at is they would go ahead and just put some type of base down to park on, and they would also run the electricity over. Is it FedEx or is it at that building?
Well, there's a junction right there, right
Okay.
on the lot that I think they can tap out of and
Yeah, so it's
set
pretty,
up a meter.
pretty close. One thing that came out of some meetings with our engineers last week is that with projects, we'll have some, for this summer, we'll have some extra millings that we could dump there, save us some money, being able to dump them there, and then they could use them as their base if they prepared the ground to begin with. So we have thrown that out to them as well, that's an option. And this lease, depending on what they end up, how much space they end up needing, would be around $3,000 to $6,000 annually. They'd like a 5-year lease to start with 2 additional 5-year options. And I think that's it. Do you guys have questions?
oh, what would they be parking there?
Tankers?
Tanker trucks.
Empty or full or?
Empty most of the time, but there could be a situation where they would have fuel left over that didn't
They
get.
wouldn't be transferring any fuel or anything?
No.
Okay. On the 5-year options,
Mhm.
is there a bump in the rate at that time, or is it, what do the options say?
We haven't talked about that 5-year option yet. With any of these leases, the way that we have tied it back is that it would get the same increase as.
CPI generally over 5 years is what we typically do. So it's a, kind of a compound CPI over 5 years.
So, and then if there were any increases from the board throughout that time as well.
That's true. The board can always adjust our rates according to our leases. So
Right.
if you ever decided you wanted to. Look at your sweat.
So it's an option to negotiate, it's not a real option.
Right. Right. Just because they are putting some improvements in over there.
It's native soil now, so they'd have
Yes.
to
They got to harden it, yeah, because it's, although, you know, in our soil, you hit rock generally anywhere from 3 inches to 6 inches below the surface. So when you put anything on the top of it, you get an extremely strong surface pretty quickly.
Any alternative uses to the property we ought to be aware of?
Not in that particular area. It's literally adjacent to the road there, the security road that we use inside the fence. And it's really not a terrific site for much else. That's why it works so well for this. We've already got the road infrastructure there. It's fairly close to where we store the man camp units. They use that same road. So it's just kind of a similar use.
Is that what that star-shaped plot of dirt is that's next to the PMX picture?
No,
That's a FAA
It
instrument.
looks like a surface to air missile site. I wasn't sure what that was.
It's not that.
There's the RTR site there for the tower, and then the other little square is a retention pond that serves the FedEx apron. So it's sandwiched in between there, and then between our property fence where there's a couple homes over there, and then our perimeter road.
We're starting to plow the security road.
Actually, they plan to do their own snow removal over there. Probably do a bobcat there is kind of what they
We
said.
do the perimeter road, and just like the man camps, if they want snow removal, they usually hire it done themselves. We don't provide that for them.
How does that work with getting on property? You don't just call up 1-800-BOBCAT and he gets a pass to get on the grounds, does he?
No, typically they have to be escorted by their badged person. So these guys, it sounds like they have one guy that generally is doing most of the switching, who'll probably come in and get badged. And then when he has somebody come in and do snow removal, he'll either do it himself or he'll escort them in and keep an eye on them while they're doing their snow removal.
there's one that is badged and the other three
That's true,
will
one of
get
them already is
badged. And they also talked about putting like a little storage shed on there to put a four-wheeler in with a blade or whatever, just to keep up on it a little bit, so.
Any other questions or comments? I guess we'll entertain a motion to approve a potential lease for some square footage.
I'll make the motion to approve the lease as noted.
As noted.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, now, the entry-exit road.
The entry-exit road is our remaining capital project for the year. We plan to build over the summertime. The project will mill and overlay the majority of our terminal loop roadway there, and we'll also be diverting the exit from the current location where you exit to the right of the water tower. You'll now go past the water tower and exit near where the plane park is down by the main gate. That'll be a one-way road to get out of there. That movement of the exit road enables some improvement to the parking area. The new, what we're calling the value park, will be incorporated into the parking area. So the exit road will actually sweep around that, and we'll be able to pull that value park into our terminal, or our parking lot footprint, which will allow us to provide a couple new entrances into that lot. That'll, one where you'll flow through the parking lot in case we're in an overflow situation. You can continue into the value park. And then the other one, if you just continue around the terminal loop, you'll be able to enter the value park from the new exit road. In addition, we'll be able to move our toll plaza. It'll move out to the current exit road next to the water tower, which gives us a lot of capacity for the future. Once that water tower moves, we can continue to expand the toll plaza. The expansion that will happen this year provides a canopy for the toll plaza. We'll have lighted signs above that canopy to tell people what the lanes are for. There'll also be 3 automated pay machines along with 1 cashier booth to increase the capacity there pretty significantly. And we'll have a good long lead-in area. One of the worst conditions we have out there right now is a lack of queuing. As you try to enter that toll plaza, the neck of the plaza isn't deep enough to provide simultaneous queuing to the automatic pay lane or even the second cashier booth. You get about 2 or 3 cars in line and then no one can get past them. The new configuration will have 2 lanes leading into that toll plaza and then a nice wide entry area there so that you can branch out into all 4 lanes. We'll have a walkway from the Value Park that comes over into the main parking lot that's protected. There'll be no street crossings. We'll also be replacing the majority of the signage in the terminal loop area. Hey Rob, would you mind grabbing those plan sets? We're going to replace the majority of the signage. We had a couple comment cards over the last few months that said, I can't see your signs at night. Can you light the signs? Well, most signs aren't lit, they're just reflective tape, and as I went out and inventoried those, sure enough, our reflective tape is almost all worn off to where you can't read the signs at night. So we're going to replace the signs. We're going to go to a blue background, the typical highway information blue that you see when there's a history thing coming up or any highway information type of data. And we'll also be widening the current merge lane adjacent to the Great Falls International Rocks. If you're familiar with that, when you're coming in, there's 2 lanes up until the man gate, and then after the man gate, it goes down to 1 lane, and then it comes immediately back to 2 lanes. And that creates some occasional slot racing for the merge there when people realize they've got to get over. We want to get that to 2 lanes and let the FedEx traffic and the AvMax traffic stay right and the terminal traffic stay on the left. So it'll be a safety improvement, it'll be a capacity improvement. It's going to look a heck of a lot nicer. We're going to tear out the majority of the stamped concrete. Almost all of that's failing now. The green islands we have here and there. All of that's going to come out, and we'll be replacing it with a kind of a rock mulch, which we think in the long run will actually last longer and be easier for us to maintain. We can spray it. We'll put in some new landscaping. We've got a new landscaping standard that's similar to what you see around town now along the River's Edge Trail and other places where we'll have mixings of different types of rocks, some juniper underbrush, throw in some aspen trees. A really nice looking density there that we think will improve the look of everything. We saw this project a few months ago, and with a lower budget, we were currently at 1.6 million during engineers' estimates. As we've gotten into this project and determined the signs that we were going to be moving just need to be replaced, the project budget has come up some. We've added some density on the landscaping side, and we now have a budget of $2.2 million. That we'd like to get approved. We're going to use our AIP funding of $350,000. That number is likely to come up now that we've canceled taxiway C1. We have to go back through the program and determine what is eligible, but we think there's at least $650,000 in eligible work here. So we'll probably be pulling some of those entitlements into this project to decrease the authority funds. We have $610,000 already in the bank. And that money came from the terminal reimbursement that we did earlier this year when the FAA began to tell us there were some parts of this project that weren't going to be eligible based on a new reading of the exclusivity language in the AIP handbook for roadways, which says that we can only fund roads that are exclusively used by airport patrons. So a portion of this project got dropped out from that. So we went ahead and reimbursed some AIP money that we had from 2 years ago, and in order to build up a war chest for this project. So we have $610,000 on hand that we can apply directly to it. We plan to get $350,000 up to $650,000 more out of AIP as we look through this one last time for eligibility. The airlines have agreed already in the last fiscal year when we started design on this to pay for $350,000 over 2 years. And then on top of that, the rental cars have agreed to pay $350,000 out of their CFC, their rental car facility funds, in order to fund this project. So we have a total funding plan of about $2.2 million for this program, and we would like to request permission to spend that.
So John, is the roughly $600,000 all signage and landscaping then?
Signage, landscaping, and just a revision to the engineer's estimate. As we got into the project, it was a little more complex in some areas. For instance, where you come out of the exit today, we're adding a merge lane, which goes right alongside the rental car parking, or the Value Park parking lot. And we thought we could squeeze the lane in there, but they're gonna have to use a little retaining wall in that area. So there's just some things like that that cost a little bit more as we've set down to site this thing out. There's a light pole that we thought we would be able to move that we're gonna have to make some special accommodation for in the Value Park area. That's the other thing this project does is we'll complete the Value Park, which has another 200 stalls. But I thought I'd just pass around the, is that the signage plan, Rod?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
This is the layout.
the layout. But as we've gotten into actual stick design, getting the lane, the merge right that allows the Value Park to, we could turn to the signage page, I thought I'd pass that around just so they could take a look. That's been kind of difficult to squeeze that, the walkway through from the Value Park into the terminal. So it's just a little more complex than what we had thought. But a lot of it is the signs and the landscaping too. I'll pass this around too. You can kind of get an idea what the signs will look like. This is just kind of a sign family type of drawing. I think it'll be a nice snappy look. Replace some of that green that we got out there. There's one comment at least for more color, so we're
So you must be the board member.
we're yielding to more color.
It didn't say what particular.
They didn't say what color, I was guessing, but
So is blue the new airport color?
yeah, and
Sign color?
yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, we're going to a blue standard. As we think it's a nice look, a little less, highway-ish, and but yet it's still regulatory. That blue's easy to come by. A lot of reflective blue signs out there already. I think rest areas are generally blue. We do that color.
Reduces anxiety.
That's right. And our seal has long been blue and yellow, so we thought we'd pick up the blue, a lot of blue in the terminal.
So that's 1.1 that comes out of our reserves essentially?
Well, so 600,000 just went into reserves. So yeah, it's about another 500,000, but the AIP piece of this is likely to increase, so we think it'll be less than that.
And we were around 4, 3.5, 4.
Yeah, we initially thought we were going to have about 1.6 million, and so we were a little less, 400,000 out of reserves. So this one, it does bring a little bit more out of reserves.
Well, I mean, our reserves are around 3.5, 4 million.
Oh, 3.5, 4 million, yeah.
Did we, I don't know, it seems like one time we discussed what we'd like to have in there, but I don't think I remembered a number that
The
seemed
board-
like a safe.
We had put in an informal policy of 2.5, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, when the board did that. But right around the time we settled the United Materials lawsuit, and it was 2.5 was the 2.1 was considered the bottom that we would want to have. 2.5 is the goal.
We won't even hardly get below 4 then with this.
We'll probably 3, and maybe depending on how cash flow goes this year. But we're right now at historic revenue levels for the fiscal year, so probably.
Right now, we have about 4 million altogether, all our cash.
But that doesn't include the 610.
Yeah,
and then-
well, that does include the 610, yeah,
does.
because it's in the bank now.
It's in the bank, yeah.
Yeah. We just got that maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yes, we have that, and then like in less than 6 months, around 6 months, we're gonna get another, from our parking, because of the way we collect it, we always get another 500. So that's the one that builds our cash actually. So like
So you 4.5, and you take out 6, it'd be 3.9, you're still
Yeah,
way
you're right in the.
comfortable. We don't have any other huge things that are gonna draw on that for a little while.
Well, we don't have any other projects this year. With us deferring C1 now into next year, we really don't have anything. And I think Maria and I have been looking at the PFC, the PFC program. We think we can reprogram PFCs to cover the runway 16 taxiway C complex, which will be the big program next year. We think we can reprogram our PFCs. It'll take us several years to collect that much, But the good thing is, I think we've got enough for the local match out of the PFCs to pay for that, probably over about a 4 or 5 year period. So, and we continue to have a couple of reimbursements from the airlines. This year they're reimbursing us for the terminal still. They're reimbursing us for the snow building, about $300,000. So we have some direct inputs that pretty much cover this, that don't have an offsetting expense. And we see our reserves continuing to build, I guess is the way to say it.
Yes.
With the toll plaza being relocated, is it still going to be where all 3 parking lots, then the short term, the long term, and then the value one, they still all would be collected? Then is that going to be out on that main road? And
No,
is that,
it'll be basically where you leave the airport today. You know where the big rocks are next to the water
Right.
tower? That's where it goes, is right there. And so it'll have its own merge lane. As you come out onto the road, you'll be able to merge, a good long merge lane, which we don't have today. But all of the lots will flow into the new location. Today, the Value Park doesn't really have a toll plaza. At Christmas time, when we were into it, they had to kind of collect the money ahead of time. They'd ask them how long they were staying and just would collect from them then. But when we get into the new environment, everything will flow through that one toll plaza.
so will that affect the car rentals when they leave?
No, the car rentals will come out and they'll swing on to the new exit road, basically right by the rental car lot. And then they'll sweep around the Value Park and they'll exit right by where the airplane park is today, over near the Mang. And now we'll get a new merge lane too. Basically what we're doing with this program is we're increasing our terminal envelope by sweeping that road around. We gather up about another 6-7 acres in there that we pull into the terminal complex.
So if you come out the parking lot, you have to go green and to the revenue control booth. But if you just
Go around
drop
the
somebody off, then you circle around the backside of the Value parking lot.
Exactly, which is that the road exists today. It's where the rental car wash is. But we're going to be adding landscaping down that corridor to kind of de-industrialize it. We're also going to speed the curves up. We're going to flatten the curves down so it feels more like a sweep instead of a curve, or I mean a turn. And then that will all be one way, so there won't be any conflicting traffic with that exit.
Well, you are going to need some new signage for that.
Yeah.
They're going to think you're sending them to the North 40 to go apply for a job at the Guard or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a nice
Yeah,
program.
it'll be nice once people get used to it. People are creatures of habit. They've been doing it the other way for a couple of decades now.
But the toll plaza is probably the last enduring complaint that we still
I'm
have.
sure. Yeah,
Because it backs up horribly with 2 flights or 1 Allegiant flight. And that's the last enduring one that we still hear. And occasionally we'll hear other ones, but that's probably the most frequent.
You should never make people wait when they're trying to give you your money.
That's probably true.
Or for events. Except on the upside of the events, people hang around and probably have another cocktail or something. But yeah, I hear that a lot about events. Don't
Well,
want to deal with the parking.
And so with this program, the other thing we're planning to do is, there's a lot right out here. You may not have ever noticed it, but right over here, there's a pullout with 2 lanes. And I don't know why it was initially built, but it's used now for law enforcement parking. We're going to convert that over to a slotted parking lot. And we're probably going to stick meters in it, parking meters, and let it be an extension of the short-term lot. Because the short-term lot does fill up on occasion. And so when we have events, we can hood those meters and at least provide 25 or so meters for the first people that show up, where you don't have to mess with the parking booth. You can just park there and get out of there.
Just tell the board. Don't advertise it too much. Okay. Any more questions on the new exit road rehab project? So at this time, we're looking for approval from the first estimate of 1.6 to 2.2 now project. Is there a motion concerning the new proposed budget by staff?
I'll also move.
It's been moved.
Second.
and seconded to approve the new budget of or estimated cost of 2.2 million for this project. Are there any more questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
One more note I would just make with this project going forward. With the replacement of a lot of these medians, it's going to create some really terrific venues for maybe some outdoor sculpture, landscape focus, that kind of thing. So over the next year, we would like to work with the board some to just gauge your interest in something like that to improve the look of the grounds some. We think there's some real opportunity, kind of where we have the Buffalo today and adjacent to the Buffalo for some focal areas to kind of provide a cue for folks coming to the city of some of the history of the city, some of the interesting things about the city. But we'll be bringing you some of those ideas, maybe even in the retreat for consideration.
To slightly digress, is with the airlines, have they had any comments about our new terminal expansion? I mean, is that just indirectly affect them? I just can't believe that doesn't affect people's opinion and ease and comfort of coming and going from our airport.
Oh yeah, I think everybody that's been through has been very complimentary. The Alaska team that came through, we hosted a customer service event for them. Some of the corporate folks were out last year and they were exceptionally complimentary. I think, I don't know how much of the feedback from the passengers goes through them. I think they tend to direct that towards us. But we probably get maybe 10 comment cards a week, and I would say at least 8 of them are just complimenting the terminal expansion still. Even though we're coming up on 2 years, that's still the general public feedback. And the other 2, one of them is usually something nonsense that a kid puts in there, I think. But then the other one typically is a good suggestion, which we've followed up on almost all of them now. With glassware for beer in the back. That was one that we've addressed, and more beer on tap. We're working that one with those guys now. Reflective signs came up twice. Yeah,
Kids
again.
Those kids comes up with the best.
Beer in the vending machine.
Yeah, once they put their IDs away for good, it's a good time.
So where is the comment box?
There's 2. There's one in the lobby right across from the airline counters, which we put there for a reason. And then the other one is inside security right next to the fireplace lounge by the bathroom.
Okay.
So yeah, we're getting quite a few comments on this. And just generally people stopping in to, say they like it. I mean, we get a lot of great responses.
Okay, next item is the RSIP Phase 3 project. And you may have seen at your places, there's a letter that wasn't in our packet.
Yeah, it was received, as you can see on the stamp, we got it on Friday.
On the 27th.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but if you haven't, you might want to take a moment to read that.
Did you send one to JC?
Put it in all capitals.
Yep.
Give you a minute to read that. But.
Okay, having read that, then I guess...
So to kind of color that some, just in the last week, we received a draft copy of the Part 150 which also simultaneously went to the FAA. And we asked the consultant to do that because we're a little bit behind schedule. It took longer than we anticipated to get forecast numbers out of MANG, so we're about a month, 2 months behind schedule. But based on the draft, the FAA has asked us to cancel bids for the current Phase 3 construction project, and they want to leave the grant open until the study is concluded. We'll get you. Sure. But they've asked that we cancel bids. They'll leave the grant open until the study is concluded. There's a 60-day comment period that we have to get through, and the first meeting with the group of community and airport operators and other folks that we put together as a panel to help us with the RSIP projects coming up in 2 weeks. So we need to get through that whole process and see what other comments might influence the contours and the study. But at this point, the FAA, would like us to put the program on hold for a few months until we get the study completed. More or less because the study, as they say in the letter, shows that all the 65 would be contained on airport property under the new contour, draft contour.
Well, it's kind of are you looking for a?
We need to have a motion to cancel bids
Okay.
For Phase 3.
Well, I just kind of like to make a comment first. It's kind of an unfortunate situation how this came together. The timing is not good, and it's certainly awkward and a little uncomfortable for everybody. But I personally think it makes sense if the requirement's not there anymore. Then there's no reason to do the work. And the other thing is that once you get a letter from the FAA, you really don't have much. we really don't have much choice of the matter at this point. But if things do change, they did point out that they're leaving the program open in case the report is not what they thought it would be, and if there's still work to be done, then it sounds like they will approve it at that time, but they just don't want to move forward until.
Yeah, there's certainly still a lot of vetting that needs to be done. The consultant has a couple more months to get the study done. We've asked them to recheck and check again the assumptions that they've put in there. But when you look at this in the broader context of the FAA's noise programs, the phase out of the Phase 2 aircraft will be complete this year, and our last 727 stopped serving us just about a year ago when FedEx moved to a 757 for that route, in addition to the F-15s, and then of course the DC-9s that we used to have too. Those planes are all gone, and so really it's the broader programmatic elements of what the FAA has done over the years that we're seeing coming into focus in our report, in addition to the change to the C-130. So, it is in many ways a success that the FAA has been able to accomplish all of this over the last 15 or 20 years since they've started into this program. But for us, obviously, as Commissioner said, the timing's unfortunate, but there's no good time to do one of these studies while you're trying to accomplish a program. It's not always going to be artful, and these studies take a year or more to file and complete. So we kind of are where we are with it.
So do we have people who are expecting, are they contracted?
No, the project's bid.
Actually, yeah, we actually have someone in the audience. If you would like to make a comment or have a question at this time, we'd be happy to hear from you. If not, if that's okay too.
So you're going to cancel the contract? You're not going to go ahead with the ones that we did all the work to bid on and stuff?
What the FAA has said is that no more work has to be done at this point. As a matter of fact, they won't
fund it.
They won't fund it, and that's where that's where our money's come from. So let me see, as they put it, the program, how do they put that?
Can I just get a copy of the letter?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
You bet. You can- So they're not going to close the subject grant, but they're going to leave it open in case things change. But right now, if things go as anticipated and as reported in the preliminary report, then they will not fund the work as proposed.
Yeah, there's no expectation that any money would flow, and if it did flow, it's going to be probably at least another 4 or 5 months before we could get anything out of the program. As you see the last sentence of the first paragraph, they're recommending that we cancel bids.
Chad, I think you kind of hit on it a couple of different ways, but it'd be 4 or 5 months in total before they decide if this draft is acceptable, becomes
Yeah.
final, 4 to 5.
Is there any, excuse me, is there any potential this is going to have any impact on future flight missions for MAG?
Yeah, the study shows an alternative 2020 projection with F-35s. And the F-35 contour is similar to the contour of the 65 contour is the critical one, because anything above 65 and things are incompatible, houses are incompatible, and so that's when we can begin mitigating. And then there's a 70 DNL, of course, is even louder, and then the 75 is, they want you to own the 75 because it's very loud. So it's kind of a, if you look at the contour, it kind of builds out. The 65 contour of the F-15 extends out beyond the railroad tracks, but it's still significantly smaller than the contours that we had in our 2007 study for the F-15 with our current fleet mix. And this has been, the difficult part of projecting is the F-15s are loud, but they only operate during the daytime, and they have relatively few operations. The 727s, for example, that FedEx ran, they had more operations during the penalized part of the day, which is the nighttime hours, because they had some 5 p.m. operations, they had some late night operations, and the 727 is a fairly loud plane. So when you looked at the contour and what was causing the contour to be a certain size, the 727 was a critical airplane for the contour. It was pushing the boundary. Now that we see these contours, it seems evident. The 727 and the DC-9, which left about 5 or 6 years ago, were the two airplanes on the commercial side which were causing increases of the contour, such that when you look at the F-35, which is a very loud airplane, much louder than the F-15, it goes all the way back to the F-4 since there's been a plane this loud. It doesn't even extend the contour, the length that we had when we had the F-15s, because of the contribution of the commercial airframes. So we could, we're about 100 homes into the residential sound insulation program. With another 100 homes, we could probably accommodate the F-35 here. That's, in a way, it's a great marketing tool, because as the delegation and the governor look at future missions for the MAG, the F-35 is easy to accommodate in our community. And when you look around the nation at the historic fighter bases like Burlington, Vermont, Boise, Portland, even Fresno, and Buckley, those bases have so much encroachment of new neighborhoods on top of them that it will be many tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to mitigate those impacts. And even as we sit here now, Burlington is fighting, an element of the community is fighting and threatening to sue over the bed down of the F-35. So, looking ahead, we threw this scenario in there because we knew that this choke point was coming of fighter planes being in densely populated areas, and we feel as though with our training space in the Hayes MOA and the fact that most of our population base is on the arrival end, where these planes are much quieter than on the departure end, then we think in the future we would be very compatible for potential bed down of 35s. Does that help?
Well, right, I'm just trying to to bring up the topic, I mean, is there any rationale why we would want to continue the program at our expense to try and make Mang, our airport, more attractive, thank you, for the military?
Just a note, it may be optimistic to think that that would happen in 2020. The last thing I heard was more like 2025, before they would even make a decision about when the airplanes would come. So there's a lot of water going to the bridge between now and then.
Well, and the other thing, as the letter indicates, the FAA wouldn't participate at all, so we'd be at 100% on that program. So, you know, I mean, it would be many tens of millions, you know, I think, to get that done. I mean, probably at least 10 million to get that program done.
The program's still in place at that point, right?
Well,
Make a decision.
if an F-35 comes back, the program would come back. And in fact, if there's any operational difference, you know, even 5 or 6 years from now, the FAA would allow us to redo the study and reassess the environment.
Yes, sir, did you have a
Is the
question?
project that we bid on and we're a low bidder on, is that phase 7? Ours was phase 3.
Oh, they've got that wrong.
Cycle. Phase 7 is the way they've awarded grants.
So it's a grant cycle, not
The seventh
construction
grant.
cycle. Okay.
And just out of curiosity, what is, for the record, what is your name and who are you with?
I'm Lawrence Black. I'm representing Regency Northwest Construction. We
Okay.
were the low bidder on the recent phase.
Gotcha.
Well, if it's any consolation, I think, you know, at least I'm surprised by, you know, the contour, that we're seeing, the draft contour, the NEPA from the C-130 bed down, which was about 1.5 years ago, still showed West Hill inside the 65. And, you know, as we've looked into that, it seems as though that 727 DC-9 part of the fleet that was still in the Mang contours is really the main reason why the contours now have shrunk so much. So, you know, a year and a half ago, we were looking at contours that still involved the West Hill neighborhood. The newest contours show us out of West Hill. And, you know, as we said, this grant was originally cut in 2013, I think, wasn't it? And so at the time we got the grant, we still anticipated we would have to do this mitigation.
I suspect that doesn't make him feel that.
No, I'm sure it doesn't.
So we don't need movement to cancel, we need movement to put it on hold.
Well, this would be a complete cancel of this bid because, yeah, it's, like I said, it'd be a number of months
Of the
before.
bid, yeah, the project will not be. FAA will decide that.
Yeah.
And so did you also say in 2 weeks, there's a public meeting?
Yeah.
Where you would apprise
Neighborhood
interested?
councils, and,
Okay.
yeah, and, you know, and then we'll start the public outreach, you know, as the initial comments. I know I've provided some comments to the, based on the study, and FAA will probably, no doubt, provide comments to the consultant that need to be incorporated, but, yeah, at this point, we do need to cancel the bids because they've been out there for a month already, and, you know, we can't continue to have people hold bids.
It does seem a bit odd, though, that we're getting noise complaints from areas that previously had not made noise complaints. And are those West Hill areas where those noise complaints about the idling C-130s are coming from?
They're not. The couple of calls I've fielded have been, one was over at the Home Depot area, kind of behind there, and then the other one was clear over from Black Eagle. I'm not convinced the other one from Black Eagle might have been something to do with the railroad or maybe the refinery. It was the same type of complaint. They were hearing a droning noise, but they said the droning noise went on until like 2 or 3 in the morning, which isn't consistent with our operation. But the one down at Home Depot was most certainly an evening operation here, and I think it's just a different type of noise combined with a warm spring where people are trying to get their windows open, and they're not used to hearing that type of noise this time of year. I mean, it would be drowned out by a lawnmower, you know, if it were June. But, you know, it is a different noise that people aren't used to, and they're calling up to question, you know,
Until they
what
get
it
used
is.
to it, know what it is.
I can actually say I live in that area, and I have heard it too. I mean, I figured that's what it was, but it is quite different. I mean, yeah.
Four big motors. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll entertain a motion at this time concerning the status of the bid on this phase of the sound project.
For the motion, what's the phase that we're canceling bids for?
Phase 3, as we call it, yeah.
Phase
I move that we cancel the existing bids for phase 3.
Is there a second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to cancel phase 3 of the sound project. Any discussion or questions at this time? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. Are there any agenda items? Any additional items at this point? If not, we'll airport authority comments. And so, okay. Commissioner Buck, any comments at this time?
Just that it would be proactive if we could take the information with regard to the bids that we just canceled and work that into a proposal. Areas that get the F-35s are going to have an uphill battle, because it's not about where they ought to go, it's where most of the votes are.
Yeah.
And so they'll do backflips and spend gobs of money to mitigate noise in places like Fresno.
Yep.
When we could have just kept the F-15s here, for example. So if we start now, and we incorporate all this information that we've gathered, and will help the pitch when the time comes.
That's a great talking point, and as if you read the weekly report, you know I was back in DC last week with the Defense Alliance, and I promised the full delegation that as soon as this report comes public, we'll get them a copy of it so that they can see the results of those contours. And I think it might even be a great idea once we have that study in place, if if the board adopted a position of of support for the F-35 and for completing the RSIP program in support of the F-35, if that opportunity ever came about. I think that's a powerful statement that we could put out there to help support the delegation.
Step one might be to find some funds to do a what-if study to determine what the noise contour would look like for the F-35.
It's in the study.
Oh, it's in the study
Yeah,
right now?
yeah, it's in the draft study, yeah. Yeah, we're allowed to have one scenario in there, so we chose that one as a means of preparing for that and helping the delegation with the discussion.
Do you put that study online?
Yeah, it'll be available online. It'll also be down at the library and in the city city planning. So it'll be readily available here come a couple weeks. And we're also publishing it in the paper, not the full study, but the fact that it is available at those places.
Okay. Additional board comments, Commissioner Rooney?
None.
None? Commissioner Hogan?
None.
Commissioner Goodson? Commissioner Swanson? Commissioner Evans? I don't have any at this time either, so let's adjourn from the board meeting and reconvene in about 25 after, according to that clock. Thank you. Is it hot in here?
It's hot in here.
It's warm.
Oh, you're not hot?
Do we need a bunch of time?
What?
Do we need a bunch of time? Can we just ship right in?
Oh, out of the country? We went to
Nobody
London.
moves. We'll try it.
Andrew and I went here.